Good evening, everyone. How are you? Am I audible perfectly? Let me change the audio settings here. Yeah. Am I audible now? I guess I am audible. Yes. So, good evening, everyone. This is the Indian Express analysis by StudyIQ IS. I'm Ankit, and this is 10th of March. So, today we are going to discuss important articles from our today's newspaper. Now, we'll start off our today's discussion with hantavirus. This has been in news, particularly because a popular Hollywood actor, he along with his wife, died in mysterious circumstances. And because of after their autopsy has been taken, it was gauged that they, or particularly the wife of that popular Hollywood star, died because of hantavirus. Now, these kind of viruses that emerge in our day-to-day lives, these are important from which part of the syllabus? From GS paper 3 perspective. Understood? So, we are going to discuss in detail about hantavirus. Then we'll move on to the next article of the day, which actually talks about the island nation of Vanuatu, and this Vanuatu is in news because Lalit Modi, who is also known for the original or the idea generator of the IPL, he has actually evaded Indian law authorities by moving himself to different countries. Now, Lalit Modi, he has taken refuge in a country of Vanuatu, and why and how this is possible, we'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, these kind of articles, particularly, they are important from places in news perspective, and also as it deals with the matters related to immigration, these can also be important from GS paper 2 perspective. Understood? So, these are the articles. Bagas Pinks, evening. Yashi, evening. Namaste Deepak, Lydia, evening. Niranjan, Shushmita, Crescent, Saujanya, Anchal. Yes, yes, Deepak, 5 minutes late because the net was not working, so I was unable to load the slide on this particular board, right? Then we'll be understanding the next important news of the day, that's US under the President Trump's leadership has exited from the loss and damage fund. Now, what is this loss and damage fund? Why is it important for countries like US to become a member of loss and damage fund? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, on a very basic note, you have to understand that these kinds of funds that they are formed under the aegis of United Nations framework for change of climate change. Now, these kind of funds, they are the funds that support the developing countries in order to make them much better when it comes to dealing with climate change, right? So, therefore, this kind of a syllabus becomes important from GS paper 3 perspective, that is our environment syllabus. Then we'll moving on to an economic related topic, which are Trump's tariff unsustainable in nature? And why are we saying that Trump's tariff are unsustainable? Because we have seen Trump, since when he has come to power in US, he has repeatedly threatened many countries to impose tariff in case they do not accede to his request. Now, you have to understand that his threat of imposing tariff is just a threat. In longer run, it is not sustainable even for US economy. Understood? So, that is why we have to understand what are the reasons that make such kind of imposition of tariffs unsustainable in global economy, particularly with respect to United States. And this kind of an article is important from GS paper 3 perspective. And then we'll be understanding India-US extradition treaty. Because under this extradition treaty, a person who has been accused of getting involved in Indian related terror activities, he has been extradited, or he will be extradited from US and into India, and this is possible only because there is an Indo-US extradition treaty in place. Now, how is extradition treaty different from extradition agreement? We'll try to understand this, and we'll also understand the various nuances of Indo-US extradition treaty. And then in the last article, we'll be discussing that President Trump has actually reapproached the leadership of Iran so as to restart the negotiations on nuclear deal. Now, if you can remember, in his previous tenure, President Trump went back from the nuclear deal that was started during the time of President Obama. But now, what are the conditions have actually emerged so that Trump is now favoring reimposition of nuclear deal with Iran? So, we'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, you know the drill. As usual, The notes for this session will be available on ATS Live channel. You have the option to search ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your mobile app, which will take you to my channel. In case if you still are not able to find it, this is the QR code that you can scan and it will take you directly to my channel. You just don't have to go to the channel, you also have to hit the subscribe button, as it will keep you updated with respect to various events. Also, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit the thumbs up icon, as it helps us keep motivated and also helps reach our content more people like you. Okay, now this is the question that we are going to discuss today before the session ends. Discuss the conditions favoring the reapproachment between the United States and Iran, highlighting its potential impact on India's energy security, regional connectivity initiatives and geopolitical interest in West Asia. And this question, we have to address it in 250 words. So we'll first of all understand the article which deals with US's intention to agree with the nuclear deal with Iran and how it will impact India in various circumstances. We'll try to understand this. Okay. Now, let us start our today's discussion with the first article of the day. This article actually appeared in the explain section of our today's newspaper, and it deals with hantavirus. Now, why is this hantavirus is in news? Because a popular Oscar-winning actor, Mr. Gene Hackman, he recently died because of heart disease, and his death was after a few days. His wife, Miss Betsy Arakawa, she died due to mysterious circumstances. After the autopsy was conducted on her body, it was found out that she died due to hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. And what is this hantavirus syndrome? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Okay. Now, first of all, let us understand some details about this virus. Now, hantavirus, it is actually a rare infectious disease. You can understand this from the name itself. It is a disease which has viral origin, okay, much like COVID pandemic. Okay, now this is a rare infectious disease which begins with flu-like symptoms and progresses rapidly in more severe diseases. Now, it can even lead to life-threatening lung and heart problems, and therefore the mortality rate when people are under this virus can be sometimes quite high. Therefore, we need to pay close attention to such viruses. Now, it is also known as hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome. So this is another name of this virus. Okay, you can understand why is it cardio attached here, because it sometimes lead to heart related problems. So this is how the names of the diseases have been assigned. Now, what is or how this disease actually transmits from one person to the other person? Does it actually transfer or transmit from one person to the other? The answer is no. It does not spread from person to person, unlike COVID-19 viruses, which actually transferred from one infected person to another person. Whereas the hantavirus, it transmits rapidly or mainly from rodents like rat and mice. These are the originator of these viruses. Now, infection, it is usually caused by inhaling hantaviruses that may have become airborne due to the rodent's urine, droppings or saliva, or in rare cases it is also possible that it can spread through rodent bites and scratches. So technically, what is important to note, that does it spread from person to person? The answer is no. It actually spreads from animals like rodents, mice, etc., from animals to humans. So it is possible from animal to human transmission, but people to people or human to human transmission is not possible. Understood? And in rare cases, it can also be transmitted through the bites of rodent and mice. So please remember these kind of facts. Now, how is actually or what are the symptoms of this viruses? You have to understand this. Now, whenever a person is infected with this kind of virus, this symptoms, it starts to show in form of fatigue, fever and muscle aches, and this is followed by some severe symptoms like headaches, dizziness, chills and even abdominal issues. Now, the treatment or how to get treated if you have under this virus, actually there is no specific cure or treatment for hantaviruses. Similarly, for common cold, there is no specific cure or treatment, right? But how do you manage common cold? You take medicines which actually reduce the amount of cold that may be present in your body. Therefore, similar to common cold, early detection and treatment are very crucial if you have to manage this disease. Please remember, there is no specific cure or treatment available. You have to minimize or manage the risk from this disease, and this is what healthcare professionals usually do. Now, some antivirals, they may help in managing the symptoms, and some patients who are experiencing breathing difficulties, they may need respiratory support like breathing tubes. So this is how you manage the disease, that you don't let the disease trouble the person too much, rather you reduce the amount of load that there might be of the disease in a particular person. So therefore early detection is quite crucial if we have to prevent the death of a person from this virus. Understood? Now, good evening, Amy. Good evening, Army. Okay, sorry. Now, this article that was covered in the newspaper today, it also gave certain kind of precautions that people have to ensure in case they want to prevent from being infected by these viruses. Now, what are the precautions? First of all, people who are living in a locality that is known for spreading of hantavirus, they can clean certain excrement, but only through wet paper towels, gloves and tight fitting N95 masks. So these are preventive measures also. Now they also need to avoid using a vacuum cleaner or a broom, as the aerosols, whenever you are wiping a surface clean through vacuum or broom, the aerosols from the droppings might be stirred up and eventually can be inhaled by you, which can lead to transmission of these viruses. And also you need to use bleach solution or commercial disinfectant to sanitize the area, and also to wipe down the area with paper towels that are carefully disposed of. So the intention of it is to prevent from you getting contacted with the droppings or even the urine of the animals, right? So this is how you prevent yourself from hantavirus. Understood? Now let us try to solve this question. Consider the following statements regarding hantavirus. Please read this question and answer me as soon as possible in the comment section. I'm watching it. The first statement, hantavirus, it's a rodent-borne virus that spreads from human through contact with infected rodents' urine, feces and saliva. Like COVID-19, hantapulmonary syndrome can be spread from person to person through respiratory droplets. And third, there is absolutely no known cure for HPS. You have to identify the correct statement. Now, please let me know the correct answer quickly. I am watching. Baga, Yashi, Deepak, Lydia, Crescent, Saujanya, Aanchal, Lydia. Sarang says B, Baga says B. But is third correct? This is an absolute statement with the word absolutely right behind it. Is the third statement correct? Everybody says B, so I am assuming you have assumed that the third statement is correct. Why is third correct or why is third incorrect? Please let me know that. First is correct. It is direct a question like COVID-19 pandemic. You have to understand this is very unlike COVID-19 pandemic. Hantavirus, it does not spread from human to human, rather it spreads from animal to humans. So second statement also incorrect. But is third correct? Well, yes, I have framed this statement as an absolute statement knowingly well that this absolute statement is correct. So please do not get mistaken. Even in the exam, if you find such absolute statements, that in some cases they might actually be correct. Okay. So therefore, third statement is right because there is no known cure for HPS. You can manage this disease, but you can't cure it. Okay. So third is correct, second is incorrect, first is right. We have to identify correct statement. So yes, all of you are correct. Option B is the right answer. Yes, Bagas, Ping, Aanchal, your explanation is correct. Now moving to the next article. This article actually appeared in the explain section and it states why Vanuatu boasts one of the most popular golden passport scheme. Now the news or this news article deals with a particular country located in the southern Pacific Ocean known as Vanuatu, right? Now why is actually Vanuatu in news? Because former IPL chief Mr. Lalit Modi, he has surrendered his Indian passport at Indian High Commission in London, and rather he has said that he has acquired the citizenship of Vanuatu. Vanuatu, if you can look from this map, it is located towards the northeast side of the Australia, particularly in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, right? So this is actually a sum of the or a archipelago of islands, right? So let us deal with some details about the Vanuatu. Now, Vanuatu is an archipelago of 83 islands and it spreads over 1300 square kilometers area and it is located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. Now, there is a citizenship by investment facility which is actually allowed in these kind of countries, because these kind of countries, they are very small countries, like, so they need some kind of a source of money and so they can get it. So therefore these kind of countries, they come up with a scheme known as citizenship by investment scheme, and in this scheme, if you invest certain kind of a money in that country will provide you with the citizenship, right? So technically these kind of programs or schemes are intended to attract people with high net worth money, and Mr. Lalit Modi is very rich person. Now, this citizenship by investment scheme, in our today's discussion, I will use the term CBI. I will not be meaning the Central Bureau of Investigation. I will be referring CBI today as citizenship by investment. Okay. Now, CBI, it allows individuals to acquire citizenship in a country based on certain significant financial contribution if they are to make in that particular country. So, technically, in other words, this is a scheme where you can buy the citizenship of the country. Okay. Now, this scheme is popular among wealthy individuals who are looking for easier global mobility. Also, these kind of schemes provide many tax benefits and offshore financial services, and naturally, people who have money will be looking at these kind of services that are offered in the country. Yes, much similar to the one President Trump has made in US. But US has a very different intention to it. US genuinely wants people to invest here, but these countries, they do not have anything to do with the investment. They are rather offering that please invest here, we will offer you some kind of benefits and offshore financial services. Okay. Now, according to Global Residence Index, which is actually published by a venture capital company, need not important from our today's discussion, Vanuatu, it offers fastest and simplest of the citizenship by investment program, and that is why it is quite popular among the rich people in general. Now, what are the benefits or what is the cost of getting a citizenship in Vanuatu? You have to understand, citizenship for an individual, it costs somewhere between 135,500 US dollars to 155,500 US dollars. And in Indian currency, it ranges from 1.18 crore to 1.35 crore. And in 2019, the BBC, which is British Broadcasting Corporation, it reported that passport sales account for nearly 30% of Vanuatu's revenue. So you can understand this country is making about 1/3 of its money just from selling its citizenship. So that is very crucial for Vanuatu's economy. And Vanuatu is not just the only country which offers such kind of an investment or an opportunity. Rather, countries like Malta, Turkey, Montenegro, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Egypt, they also offer similar programs. So therefore, Vanuatu has the most popular of the programs, but it is not the only country that offers such kind of a services. Okay. Now, in that regard, let us understand what advantages that does Vanuatu citizenship offer to high net individuals. First of all, you will be provided with visa free travel. As a person who is having a Vanuatuan passport, they can travel visa free to as many as 113 countries. Also, this country provides you with the tax haven status. That is, it is considered as a zero tax jurisdiction, meaning they levy no personal income tax, they levy no capital gains tax, no inheritance tax, no wealth tax, etc. So rich people, they'll not be required to pay taxes, and you can understand when these rich people, they are in their home countries like India, they'll be required to pay crores and crores of rupees as taxes. Whereas if they are citizenship of this country and they can show that they are making money out of these country, so they'll not be required to pay any kind of these taxes. Understood? So that is why this country offers such a huge attraction for high net worth individuals. Now, let's see if you can solve this question. Consider the following statements regarding Vanuatu. Vanuatu is an archipelago located in North Atlantic Ocean. Vanuatu's CBI program is the most complex and time-consuming citizenship acquisition process as per the Global Residence Index. Now, Vanuatu's tax regime includes personal tax but exempts capital gain taxes and inheritance tax. Let me know the correct answer. Which of the following statements are correct? You have to identify correct statement. Please pay close attention to it. Quick. Sarang says option D. Bagas Pink says option D. Lydia says option D. Are these three people correct? Others, what are you doing? None, sir. Yes. Sir, आप विदेश गए हैं? Yes, गए हैं. Yashi Sharma, option D. Yes, every one of you is right. None of the options are correct. Vanuatu is located in the southern Pacific Ocean, not northern Atlantic Ocean. Yes, Lalit Modi is no more an Indian citizen now. Now, CBI program of the 102 is one of the most attractive and easiest of the programs. So, second statement incorrect. Third, 102's tax regime, it excludes any kind of taxes, whether be it personal income tax, capital gains or inheritance tax. So, third statement also incorrect. None of this is right. So, option D is right. Do we still get to try him for his crimes? Obviously. If by some means Lalit Modi finds himself in India and the law authorities catch him, which they should actually, he should be tried for his crimes just because he took off with huge amount of money despite having high net worth. You can understand the audacity of such persons. They are rich already. People, poor people who need actual loans for education, for personal use, for any kind of a work, they are unable to get these loans. But these rich people, they somehow, with using their connections, they are able to secure the loans. And look at the audacity, they don't even return the loans and run away to some other foreign countries. And most of these people, they find refuge in countries like United Kingdom. Now let us move to another article. This article actually appeared in the page 5th of the Indian Express newspaper, and it states that the United States, it has exited from the United Nations Climate Damage Fund meant for poor nation. And this climate fund, which is meant for poor nation, this article is actually talking about the loss and damage fund. Now, United States, it has withdrawn itself from the board of the loss and damage fund, which was exclusively established to provide financial support to countries who are affected by climate change disasters. Now, you understand globally, the world, across the world, or many countries across the world, they are aware of this fact that the climate change is the biggest problem that the mankind or the humankind will face in the coming times. So the countries are aware of this fact. Now, to deal with the crisis and to alleviate these kind of crises, the countries have got together and they have formed a body known as United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, abbreviated as UNFCCC. Now, this is actually a treaty which establishes the legal framework for international cooperation on climate change, and the meetings of this UNFCCC, which is known as Conference of Parties, it happens every year in some country or the other, and they decide on what actions that can be taken in order to alleviate the problem of climate change. You may have heard of Paris Agreement, right? In Paris Agreement, which was a historic agreement, all the countries agreed to reduce their emissions of greenhouse gases so as to control the increase in temperature of the global warming. As the temperature, it was expected to increase much higher. Now they have decided to control it at 2 degrees centigrade, and they will make all the efforts to control it even at 1.5 degrees centigrade. So they are trying to control the amount of global warming, and how they are trying to control it? By reducing the amount of greenhouse gases emissions. So this is the summary of what UNFCCC does. Now, one of the problems that have been faced in the discussions of UNFCCC is that the poorer or developing countries, they are saying that now is the time when we are undertaking huge industrial development so that these developing countries can now become developed nations. But the developed countries like US, UK, European Union, they are saying that if you undertake a ruthless industrialization, it will lead to increase in emission of greenhouse gases, and that is not good for climate change. So this is the problem, that one side there is a developed country that wants to control the emissions of greenhouse gases, and on the other side there are developing countries who are saying that now is the time for us to become developed and we need to undertake rapid industrialization in order to become developed. And you can understand the byproduct of rapid industrialization is the increasing emission of greenhouse gases. So the developing countries came up with a proposal that they said, why doesn't the developed countries who are already rich, they should provide developing countries with some kind of financing so that developing countries can undertake technological development so that they can move towards a less greenhouse gas emitting based development. So this was the requirement that was put forward by the developing countries, and it included India. But it was also realized that there are many countries known as the island nations, or the SIDS, which is a union of small island countries. They said that the brunt of climate change will be the most extreme on our end, because these countries are sea-based countries, some of them are just islands. So what if there is an increase in the level of sea? Naturally, this will lead to flooding of the island nations, and therefore they need higher amount of funds, particularly from the developed countries, so that they can undertake preventive measures to deal with the changes of climate change. So this, for this purpose is only the world and the global nations, they agreed to set up a loss and damage fund. And as you can understand from this name, this loss and damage fund, it has fund which actually compensates to small and developing countries so that they can undertake measures to deal with climate changes. So the objective of this fund is to support vulnerable nations, address and compensate these nations for losses and damage that they might have incurred due to climate changes. It can be anything from natural disasters to slow level developments like rise in the sea level. Also, it will finance humanitarian assistance in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, as we saw due to tsunami. Many island nations, including India, which is a sea-based nation, it faced the brunt of the natural disasters, and also addressing the medium and long-term impact of climate change will be dealt by this fund. Understood? So this was the entire purpose of establishing the loss and damage fund. Now, this is actually a fund which has certain amount of money, and who is contributing the certain amount of money? It is the developed nations, and this money will be given to the smaller countries so as to undertake development work, particularly with development that deals with prevention of climate change. So this is a financial mechanism that helps developing countries to deal with economic and non-economic losses from the climate change, and it was established in the 27th COP that happened in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Now, this fund is managed by World Bank, which is an interim trustee of this fund for 4 years, and as of now this fund has $750 million at its disposal, which is not enough. Understood? Now, to deal with how this money will be invested, where this money will be provided, what kind of works this money will be provided, that decision is made by the Board of Loss and Damage Fund, and this fund is governed by the board. As I have already told you, this board, it deals with the matters of allocating funds, on approving projects, and also setting up of policies. Now, this board was officially set up in 2023 after this 28th meeting of COP, which held recently in Dubai, and it was done after operationalizing the framework of how this board will be managed. And the composition of this board is that it includes 26 members representing both the developed as well as developing nation. Now, US has withdrawn from this particular board. Understood? Paris Agreement happened in 2015 December, not Baga Sphinx, not 2016, 2015 December. Now, let's solve this practice question. Consider the following statement regarding the loss and damage fund. It was established as COP 28 to provide financial assistance to developing nations affected by climate change. Is it correct? Was it established at COP 28? The World Bank, it acts as an interim trustee for the fund for the period of 4 years. Correct. The governing board of this fund is composed solely of representatives of developing nations to ensure equitable distribution of funds. Is the third statement correct? Is the second statement correct, or is the first statement correct? Please let me know. You can see it from here. Quick. Yes. First statement, it isn't correct. The Board of Loss and Damage Fund was set up in 28. The fund itself was set up in the COP 27 at Sharm el-Sheikh. The second statement, World Bank, it acts as an interim trustee for this fund for the 4 years. Now, the governing board, it consists of both developing and developed nations right now. So, therefore, third statement incorrect. Only second is right. We have to identify correct. Option B is the correct answer. Yes. All of you have gotten it right. I am impressed by you. Now, as I tell you every day, right? This last article that I dealt with, it dealt with a particular matter of the climate change. Now, climate change and its associated conventions that happen every year, these are a lot of conventions. Now, where do we cover these kind of conventions in detail? In the environment class, which is provided under the Sampoorn batch. Understood? So, because of time restriction that I have every day, that I have to take this session just for 1 hour, and then I proceed to other classes. And where do I take classes? In these kind of Sampoorn batches. Now, in Sampoorn batch, what we offer is a complete coverage of the preparation that a student is required to have. We provide them with study material, we provide them with classes where expert and subject matter experts teachers, they take classes for their respective subjects, and also the students, they will have an option to test their knowledge by giving both prelims as well as mains test series. In addition to all of these, we also provide students with mentorship support, because we understand whenever a student is studying, they are preparing for the exam, it is quite natural for students to have doubts. And where to address these doubts? First, they can approach the mentors and then they can approach the faculties. And this mentorship support is offered 24/7, that even if in the late night when you're preparing for the exam and you might have some certain kind of queries, right? So it is as simple for you just to pick up your phone, type the WhatsApp message to the mentor, and the mentor will respond as soon as possible. And this is only provided in the Sampoorn batch of StudyIQ IS. Now let me know the way where you can enroll or how you can enroll for these kind of courses, right? Now, for that, you have to go to our website. This is the website. You have to create an account here. By creating an account and logging into a website, you will be provided the Explore Courses button here. Okay. So click on Explore Courses and you can see there are various batches that will be offered in our StudyIQ IS. And for example, if the students, they are not that comfortable with Hindi as their primary or their mother language, we understand this problem. And for that, we have exclusively brought batches which are available in English for the students at StudyIQ. And this is known as the March English batch, for admissions for which is currently going on now. Now click on this button. The discounts right now are available till 15th of March. This is available at 34,999. You click buy now, you can get it in a way that I'll tell you today at a much cheaper cost than this. For example, there must be a ticker going on in the bottom half of your screen that says use the code ATS Live for maximum discount on all StudyIQ courses, right? So similarly, click on add promo code here. Click here and add ATS Live. Click on apply and see the value of the course or the fees that you're required to pay has reduced from 34,999. Now it is 27,999. That is the discount of 7,000 rupees. I understand 7,000 rupees is a huge amount of money. You can do many things with it. So please make sure to use the code ATS Live, get the discount and save yourself the 7,000 rupees. And I told you, right, this course is the best available course right now online, not just in StudyIQ, but everywhere. Understood? So this is how you register for our courses. Now let us move to the next article of the day. Now this next article, it appeared in the business page of the Indian Express newspaper, that in Delhi's edition is located quite far behind in 29th page. But the article, it deals with why is actually Donald Trump walking back on his promise of imposing tariffs on many nations. There might be some compulsion on Donald Trump, right? Why is it he going back on his election promises? We'll try to understand the very reason of it. Okay. So the context of today's article is that in second time in less than 48 hours, President Trump has rolled back the imposition of new tariffs on many countries, including Canada and Mexico, which two countries are one of the biggest traders with the United States. Now this has been done because of some reason, right? So in our today's discussion, we'll understand the reasons behind why is actually President Trump dilly-dallying on imposition of tariffs. Sir, how long are these paid batches accessible? 12 or 24 months. See, for these details, please contact the customer support representatives that are available on the website. You will find the number and you'll get all kinds of queries that are resolvable. Okay. Amar bought few books using your code. Okay, thank you, Amar. Chini, Jai Hind, sir. I am from Telangana. Jai Hind, Chini. US also withdraw from WHO. Yes, US is in a process of withdrawing from many countries. Now, President Trump is very impulsive in nature. But as far as we have understood that his impulse might be appearing as an impulsive decision, but there are many thinkings that go behind his decision. One of the thinkings that he has said by implementing tariff is that it will benefit US economy. So in our today's discussion, let us understand whether or not these kind of tariffs will actually benefit US economy or will they harm US economy, right? Now, before understanding the imposition of tariffs, you have to understand some structural issues that are there with the US economy. Now you understand, right? US is a developed country. So to undertake any kind of manufacturing process, US would need to set up a manufacturing unit in US. It may have to hire citizens of US to work in those factories. But do you think in a developed country it will be quite cheap for you to hire labor? No, right? That is a developed country. People are all actually very living in a very comfortable situation. So will they be giving you the work at a much lesser cost as compared to the countries like India and Bangladesh? No, you have to pay them higher salaries. So this is one of the key problems with US, that it is not a developing country, rather it is a developed country. Now, as US, it is the world's largest consumer of goods and services, and the availability of goods and services in terms of manufacturing in US, it is not available. So US consumes many goods and services, but these goods rather have to be imported into US. So in that case of US, you have to understand that number of imports is much higher than US exports to other countries, and therefore US's trade is in perpetual or a ongoing deficit. That when imports are much higher than exports, you have to say that the trade which happens from US to other countries and from other countries to US, it is in deficit. The US imports much more than it exports. Now, why does this actually happen? First of all, the labor cost in US is quite high. As I told you, right, people are much more prosperous in US, so they will not be working in a place for lower salaries. They will demand higher salaries, and when there will be higher labor cost in US, it will actually de-incentivize many companies to set up their manufacturing units in US. So therefore, domestic productions of certain goods, it might become quite inefficient in US. Rather, when you set up these similar factories in countries like China and India, where the labor costs are quite low, so you can manufacture those products at a much cheaper price. Understood? So this is one reason why manufacturing in general is not that popular in US, because of high labor cost. Also, countries, they have cheaper labor available, particularly in countries that have high population, be it China, India, Mexico, Vietnam. All of these countries, they have abundant amount of cheap labor available, and using that labor, when they undertake manufacturing process, the cost of the product are quite low. And when the cost of the product are low, you can understand that product will be quite competitive in the foreign markets. So this is one of the advantages that are available for countries who are lesser developed. Now, US dollar in general, it is global reserve currency, as you can understand, right? Including India, many countries, they have foreign reserves. And what are the key components of these foreign reserves? Foreign currency assets. And which is the most popular foreign currency of the entire world? It is US dollar, because countries like India, China, they have to spend dollars when they have to import the goods. But that problem is not there with US. It just needs to print more dollars in order to import more goods, right? So therefore, US dollar, when it acts as a reserve currency of the world, it shows that it is quite easy for US to import goods from other countries as compared to other countries that have to depend on dollars or the other currencies of the world. Understood? सर आप कभी US गए हो? No, sorry, कभी नहीं गया और जाना भी नहीं है. Okay, Lydia, dollars, yes. So as US has the advantage of having its own currency as the reserve currency, so it is quite easy for US to import. So these are the results, or these are the reasons why actually US is not a global manufacturer of goods and services. Rather, it is much easier for US to import goods from other country. Now, let us understand some other structural issues as well. Now, first of all, you have to understand, when any country imposes tariff, it means that the custom duty of the goods that are imported in a particular country will increase, right? So the custom duty will increase, and that is why US wants to control the amount of imports that is happening. But as a side result, you have to understand that whenever you increase custom duty, that automatically increases the prices of goods and services that are available in the country. On the other hand, US, back when President Trump was in power in his first tenure, US undertook the changes in the FTA that happened in the NAFTA region, that is North American Free Trade Agreement, and there was a new agreement that was brought, which was signed by Trump exclusively with countries like Canada and Mexico. Now this USMCA, it replaced NAFTA treaty. Now the current imposition of tariffs on Canada and Mexico, it actually violates the free trade pact of USMCA. And USMCA, what happened, that President Trump, that is America, it agreed to make the trade free between these three countries by removing tariffs. But now when President Trump is imposing tariffs under the same treaty, it actually violates the free trade pact. And why does any country would want to get itself involved in the free trade? Because of trust that it has on the other countries. Understood? But when you are imposing the tariff, you are erasing the very trust that was the foundation of the agreement. So it actually shows in a bad faith that US economy is getting harmed. Now you have to understand that the Trump has actually claimed that when he will be imposing tariffs on other country, that tariff will be paid by another country. But this claim is actually quite false, because in reality, whenever you are importing goods into your country, the amount of custom duty it increases, that is the tariff, right? So in that case, US importers or companies who are American in nature, they will have to pay the tariffs when the goods arrive in United States, because Trump has increased the tariff. And naturally, they will not pay it from their own pockets. Rather, what they'll do is that they'll increase the cost of products that are available in the market. And what it will lead to? It will lead to increased inflation in the US market. So eventually, it is the US based consumers who are at a disadvantage of increase in tariffs and not the other countries. The only harm that the other countries might face is that their imports to US or their exports to US will reduce. Rather, the majority brunt of this particular move will have to be borne by the US based citizens and the US based consumers. So therefore, this is the very reason why actually tariff as a concept, it fell out of favor after the World War II, because it was felt in order to increase the trade between countries that were happening, you have to minimize the kind of taxes that you levy on imports and exports, and that is why tariff was removed from the lexicon of the world trade. But now when Trump has arrived and he falsely claims that tariff will actually be paid by other countries, it is actually fake news. Rather, the brunt of tariff will be majorly borne by the US based consumer in form of inflation in the US economy. So this is why tariff as a concept is quite flawed in nature. Now let's solve this particular question. Please look at this question, read the question carefully and let me know the correct answer quite quickly. The first statement, US trade deficit exists primarily because of high labor cost and its reliance on imports. Yes, this is correct. The USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, ensures tariff-free trade among the US, Canada and Mexico. Tariff imposed by US are directly paid by the foreign countries exporting goods to the US. Is second and third statement correct? Please let me know. आंसर दो भाई जल्दी. Well, second statement is correct. Third is not, because the tariff imposed will be borne not by the foreign countries but by the domestic consumers where it is levied. That is in today's discussion by the US based consumers. Okay, so third is incorrect. First and second is right. We have to identify correct statement. Option A is the right answer. Yes, Achal, Sarang, Shushmita, Yashi, all of you are right. Yes, Lydia, you are correct also. Now let us move to the next article of the day. This article actually states that the 2611 accused Tawwar Rana is actually set to be extradited to India. But this crime or this terrorist related incident, it happened in 2008 when he's been deported back to India in 2025. So the big question is, what was actually US doing between 2008 to 2025? Why it is deporting this person now? Why not back at the time when he was caught in the United States, right? But that kind of a debate is not important from our UPSC's perspective. What is important is the process based on which he is being extradited into India, right? Now the United States Supreme Court, where the Tawwar Rana actually filed for a plea to prevent himself from being deported into India, this was rejected. Now it is expected that he will be extradited to India, and he will be extradited to India based on the provisions of the India-US extradition treaty, which was actually signed in 1997. Now this treaty, it facilitates the extradition between India and United States, and the offense that will be used for extradition of an individual, you have to please make sure that these offenses based on which that person will be extradited to the other country has to be criminalized by both of these countries. That is known as dual criminality principle. Now suppose if a person commits murder, and if the act of murder is criminalized both in US and in India, then only for murder that person can be extradited. Similarly, this person has been extradited from being involved in terrorist related activities. Terrorist related activities is actually a crime in both United States and in US. Therefore, based on the dual criminality principle, he has been extradited. But you have to understand there are some kind of crimes that have been exempted from many treaties. It happened with India Bangladesh treaty also. It happens with India US treaty also. That is, political offences, they are generally not extraditable. But you have to ensure that many crimes that can be interpreted as political in nature, but they can't be exempted from treaties. For example, if a person commits murder of a head of state, hijacking of a plane, terrorism related activities, crimes against internationally protected person, these kind of offences are actually criminal in nature, hence they are not being applicable to be extended relief under the political offences. So based on this terrorism only, this person is being extradited back into India. Now the extradition, it may be refused on certain grounds. First of all, if the person feels that he is facing risk of persecution based on their particular religion, race, nationality or political beliefs, or if the person has been involved in an offence which is characterized as a military nature offences. Also offences that carry capital punishment, unless or until the requesting country who is being extradited to, they particularly say that will not actually punish that person with death penalty, then only the extradition might happen. So if the country it actually does not waive off death penalty, in that cases the extradition will not happen. So these are the grounds based on which a person can claim exemption from getting extradited. USMCA did not tariff the trade. It actually set and imposed conditions on the other countries based on which they can follow it. For example, there were many automobile factories that were set up in Mexico, right? And these cars that were being manufactured in Mexico, that had zero tariff when they were being exported to US. So US imposed certain conditions that will continue to impose zero tariffs on the imports from Mexico based on the condition that you use our material from the US. So it actually was a conditional based free tariff agreement. Understood? Actually, it reduced the tariff, but it was reduced based on certain conditions. Now, these are the three grounds based on which the extradition might be refused in cases of US extradition treaty. Okay, but the biggest cause of worry is actually why was this extradition so delayed? As I've already told you, this is a very slow process because the cases, they often takes years to be solved in a particular country due to legal challenges. As you may have heard about the famous quote of Sunny Deol, Tariq pe Tariq, Tariq pe Tariq. This is prevalent across the world, not just in India. Even courts in US, they witness significant delays. And now because of the slow process, 65 Indian fugitives, they are awaiting extradition from the US, and only 11 extraditions have actually happened between 2002 to 2018. Now also, US in general has been reluctant to extradite many of the people who are involved in terrorist related activity. For example, David Headley, he was a main perpetrator of 2611 Mumbai attacks. He conducted recce on the sites where the Mumbai attacks happened, like Taj Hotel, like Nariman House, even the Trident Hotel. Still, that person was not extradited to US. Even Warren Anderson, who was the chairperson of the Dow Chemicals of the factory that was set up in Bhopal, which actually resulted into the gas disaster, even that person, the Union Carbide CEO, he was refused to be extradited back into India. So these were the famous instances where US has actually denied extradition despite these people being the culprit both in the eyes of US law and in the Indian law. Also, there are certain procedural problems that have been faced by extradition treaty. For example, different legal systems. Now, I understand India's legal system is very different from US. So, therefore, it might be argued that the standards of extradition which is there in US might not be agreed to by India. Similarly, vice versa. So these are the three reasons based on which the extradition process always exclusively is delayed severely. Understood? Now, let us understand the difference, or is there actually a difference between extradition treaty and an extradition agreement? You have to understand extradition treaty that we were dealing with right now, it is actually a formal legal agreement between two countries, and in India it has signed extradition treaty with as many as 48 countries, which includes US, UK, Canada, France, Germany, etc. Whereas on the other hand, the informal kind of an agreement between the two countries which has no legal obligation, it is known as extradition agreement, and it is based on mutual understanding, right? Not a formal treaty. And it is presently, India is involved in an extradition agreement with 12 countries like Hong Kong, Saudi, Papua New Guinea, Italy, Switzerland, Sweden. Understood? So this is the difference between extradition treaty. Extradition treaty is a legal agreement, whereas extradition agreement is a mutual understanding. Understood? Any doubt? No, right? So let us move to the last article of the day. This article actually talks about why does actually President Trump wants to restart the talks with Iran so as to get Iran to sign the nuclear deal, right? Now earlier, United States had actually signed a nuclear deal with Iran, but Trump in his first tenure, he decided to remove US from that nuclear deal. Right now, US President Trump has claimed that he has written a letter to the Supreme Leader of Iran seeking or inquiring about whether Iran wants to renegotiate the nuclear deal with US or not. Now let us take some background information about this development. Now earlier in 2010s, a formal agreement or a nuclear agreement was signed between the present permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, that is US, China, Russia, United Kingdom as well as France. And these 5 countries, and in addition to that, Germany and European Union, it signed an agreement with Iran, which was known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, more popularly known as the Iran nuclear deal, right? Now, this was signed during the tenure of previous United States President Barack Obama, right? Now, this provided Iran with sanctions relief in case Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program, right? Now, under this agreement, Iran agreed not to enrich the uranium beyond the levels of 3.6% at a level which is suitable to use uranium for power generation purposes, but you can't use uranium which is enriched by 3.6% for making weapons. And in that regard, Iran, it also agreed to let International Atomic Energy Agency to conduct audit of its nuclear facilities, whether to gauge that actually Iran was misusing the uranium supplies which was originally meant for power generation purposes, and whether or not it is using or diverting them for arms use. So this was the condition of the treaty that was agreed upon by the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, Germany, European Union with Iran. So this agreement actually was signed between US and many countries, right? But when Trump became president in 2018, one of his first order of business was to bring US back from this agreement, that it took US out from this agreement, and then it highlighted that this was the worst and most one-sided transaction that the US has actually agreed upon. Now it was established, it was especially evident that Trump was targeting not the deal itself, rather he was unhappy with the terms or the grounds based on which this agreement was signed. He was saying that this deal was actually no good for US, rather Obama could have agreed to a better deal with Iran. So he was not actually opposed to the idea of signing a nuclear deal, he was only opposed to the grounds based on which the nuclear deal was signed. And Trump has further rationalized that the deal, it was actually a failure on part of US to curtail Iran's ballistic missile program, and it also did not check Iran's regional proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, etc. And this was also a point of concern of other US based allies. For example, Saudi Arabia, Israel, they also felt that this particular deal did not agree or did not check the Iran's ballistic missile program or Iran's regional proxy, and based on this ground actually Trump withdrew from this nuclear deal. Agreed? So this is the precursor of our today's discussion. Now what happened after actually US withdrew from this deal? Now Trump, he imposed his policy of maximum pressure, which means he imposed many economic based sanctions on Iran, which hampered actually not just Iran's energy industry or petrochemical energy, but it also hampered severely the development of financial sector in the Iran. And this withdrawal by US, it also faced significant international backlash. That European Union, it refused to withdraw from the deal. It said that we are a party of the nuclear deal and will ensure that Iran also adheres to it, right? And it said that Iran was actually complying with the ground set on this particular deal, so it was no good from the US to withdraw from this deal. Also, Europe made every effort not to let sanctions of the US harm Iran, but we have seen that this effort, it actually failed to prevent companies from abandoning trade and investment. And when companies, they started to abandon trade and investment in Iran, it actually negatively impacted the Iran's economy. And therefore, when it negatively impacted Iran's economy, Iran had no other option but to significantly roll back its commitment under the deal, and it tried to enrich, or it started to enrich more of the uranium, or highly enriching the uranium. Now, formally, Iran did not withdraw from the agreement, but it did not try to follow the terms of the agreement also. Now, what happened, that the deal actually was technically stated to expire on the October 2025. But since Europe has actually failed to bring US back into the agreement, and the new American sanctions has actually crippled Iran's economy, therefore Iran, or this deal becoming true again, it is quite weakening right now. So the possibility of US getting back to this particular deal is quite thin. Now, Iran's resistance economy, it crumbled because its own currency, Rial, it was actually having a free fall when it compared to the value of US dollar, and it led to popular disaffectment even in the domestic politics of Iran, which was triggered by many other factors. But the sole reason of the bad state of Iran's economy was the crippling sanctions by the US. Now, also to pressurize US into coming back into the treaty, what Iran began to do was that it ramped up its nuclear activity, that it tried to enrich more of the uranium, and it also signaled that without this treaty, Iran will actually become a nuclear powered nation. Understood? Yes, every article today is filled by US President Trump. Yes, very correct. Now, how has actually the deal fared since then? Now, Iran's support for Russia in its war with Ukraine, it meant that all negotiations that were ongoing during the time of President Biden, that was stalled. And since the conflict began in Palestine, the IAEA, it has repeatedly warned that Iran's nuclear deal and its following of the nuclear deal lacks transparency, and it is also continuing the near production grade uranium much beyond what the agreement actually agrees to. And indeed, there is a suspicion that Iran is possibly becoming quite close to developing a nuclear weapon of its own, and this became a point of contention when Israel and Iran, they went into a conflict based on the two attacks. So this is the precursor why that US imposed sanctions, and to come out of these sanctions and as to prevent these sanctions from crippling itself, Iran started to go back and started to enrich higher amount of uranium. Now, when Iran has moved away and trying to enrich more uranium, this has reduced the possibility of US agreeing to bring the agreement back. But what has actually triggered the Trump's turnaround? You have to understand that by late 2024, Iran's economy was in dire strait, and it is likely a principal trigger that even Iran has signaled its openness to engage with US and sign a new nuclear deal. But you have to understand that US or Iran, it was siloed from the entrenched and expanding conflict with Israel, and when US or Israel actually committed aggression on Iran, Iran felt that it did not have the means to actually hit back the Israel. And this was solely possible because Iran's economy was in a pretty bad state. Now, also you have to understand, Trump has now faced a dramatically different Middle East, because earlier, when the agreement was signed in 2018 and when US decided to withdraw in 2018, there was a different geopolitics in the Middle Eastern region in 2018, because there are three prime powers in the Middle Eastern region. First is Arab states, second is Iran, and third is Israel. Now, during 2018, what we saw that the relations between Arab states and Iran, they were quite bad, because Iran, led by its many proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, it was conducting an attack on Arab interests, particularly in countries like Yemen, right? So this bad relations between Iran and Arab, it brought Israel and Arab nations close, which was signed, or which it also led to a formal agreement between UAE and Israel, right? So because of this bad relations between Arab nations and Iran, it actually brought two powers of Israel and Arab close, and therefore it was quite easy for US to not agree a deal with Iran. But coming to 2025, this equation has actually changed quite dramatically, right? And how it has changed dramatically, I will tell you just right now. Now, also there are three centers of power in 2025 in Middle East. Now, what has happened that formally Iran and Arab state, they have agreed to sign a reapproachment deal, or they have tried a detente. What is detente? Is a temporary peace between these two countries. And also Israel is engaged in a conflict, both direct and indirect, with Iran, and that has also pissed off the Arab nations. So now Iran and Arab nations, they are becoming closer as compared to Israel and Arab nations. So this is actually a changed geopolitical circumstances in 2025 that is bringing Arab nations, most of which are close allies of US, closer as compared to Iran. And this is also in the interest of Arab nation that US gets into an agreement with Iran, and it changes the geopolitics of the region. Understood? So this is the primary reason where Trump is now facing a dramatically different Middle East, that during his first term, the tensions between Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest Arab state of the region, and Iran, that was quite high. But now Saudi and UAE, they have tried to mend their relationship with Iran. So it provides a dramatically different geopolitics for Trump, and also it provides him the condition where he can engage with Iran. Now let us understand what will be the implications of such a deal between United States and Iran on India. This is important for our India's perspective, right? Now India is a historical importer of many products from Iran, particularly the crude oil and natural gas. So this import is actually stopped when US imposed sanctions on Iran, but now when the deal will happen, or if that will happen, it can lead to resumption of Iranian oil and gas imports to India. Therefore, India can reduce the cost of imports now by importing cheaper crude oil from the Iranian market. Also, India is undertaking the development of Chabahar port, which will enable India not just reach Iranian markets, but through Chabahar port, India can also reach the Afghani market. India can also reach the markets of Central Asian republics. So using the Chabahar port, India will try to increase its relation with Iran, not just Iran, but also Afghanistan and Central Asian Republic. And also this will help India boost its bilateral trade with Iran, because India not just imports crude oil and natural gas from Iran, but it also exports many products significantly into the Iranian market, be it automobiles, be it engineering goods, be it agricultural product like rice. All of this is exported into large numbers in the Iranian market, which has been stopped due to impose of sanctions by the United States. Also, it will help the region of Middle East to reduce its tension, because you understand, whenever there is an increase in tension in the Middle East, the cost of crude oil, it increases, right? And this negatively impacts India. Why? Because India imports 85% of its crude oil from outside sources. So first of all, whenever there will be a reduction in the regional trade in the Middle East, it will reduce the amount of increase in crude oil prices. Also, it will much benefit India, because India is a large importer of crude oil, and also it will ensure that India's diaspora, which is a huge number in Arab states like Saudi, in UAE, etc., they will be safe. Understood? So this is the implication for India, that from every angle that you see, the rapprochement between US and Iran, if it were to happen, it will positively bring good news for India. Understood this? So this was all for today's discussion. I want to see how you will write your today's answer, as this answer requires you to discuss the condition that is favoring the rapprochement between United States and Iran, and you have to assess its potential impact on India's energy security, regional connectivity and geopolitical interest. And please quickly write your answers. Make sure to submit it to me before the 8 p.m. deadline. And you can submit your answers on this particular Telegram channel, ATS Live, and this is your homework for today. This question, I will begin our tomorrow session with this particular question. So I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Until then, please have a very good